Welcome to the Strength Lab podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Ramsey, and my guest today is Todd Lowder. He is a was a personal trainer and gym owner of Fitness Quest for what, about 20 years or so? 25?
I think when I closed, it was 27 years.
27 years. And now he is the Illinois Wesleyan University track coach. Is that correct?
Yep, director of track and field here, as well as sports performance.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing that?
I am in my fourth year here, so I've been blessed to do this. It was a great transition. As you know, it's incredibly rewarding to do what you're doing now, what I did for a lot of years. And at I guess I was 50 years old when I took this job. At that point, I was looking for a change, an old track junkie, and was doing more and more track and finding more and more joy in that, and found a way to make it a living.
Yeah. And it helps that your son runs at the
Yes,
university that you're at, so that also is a little bit of motivation and a little bit of fun to add to what you're doing there.
yeah, I had been here. I had volunteered a year while I was still running Fitness Quest and Sports Enhancement, and that was really the genesis of how this all happened. But he was a junior when I first started here. My first full time year here, he was a senior in high school, and I'll probably never forget the conversation. I remember, one of the things I have to spend a lot of time doing is recruiting athletes, and I called him like I would call any other athlete, because I wanted him to have that same experience. And I said, "Look, I am your dad, and I do understand you're going to have a lot of choices here, but certainly want you to know that you have my blessing no matter what." And there was no hesitation. I remember, I think I posted something online after the call. I almost teared up at the time. There was no hesitation. He said, "Dad, I'm not running for anybody but you. I'm coming there."
That's awesome.
so
That's awesome.
so that was a cool moment, and I felt blessed every day to get to share the experience of 4 years with him. Last spring, I had my first NCAA All American, and it was him. So I
Yeah.
remember we were in Myrtle Beach, and I was across the track and kind of had a moment by myself, just in reflection of, holy cow. Um, Not only is it my first, but which is cool to be able to coach at that level. But for it to be your kid is pretty special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So kind of going way back, how did you get started in fitness? Like when did that
Yeah,
start for you?
it's almost hard to remember that far back. I first got certified when I was in college as an exercise science major. Personal training, I'm going to sound really old, was just kind of emerging on the coast. It had obviously gotten big in California first. This was 1990, would have been 92. I worked for a large hospital-based facility in Hampton, Virginia, and they were thinking about dipping their toes in the water. So I went up to Washington, D.C., took at the time, I think it was the American Council on Exercise exam, because I was knee deep in my major at the time, and started personal training. Uh, had been obsessed with the idea of physical transformation, athletic performance since being much like yourself, high school, college athlete. Um, didn't do a lot of college athletics. I think I made it my sophomore year in track before I got distracted with um, what has become my love of my life, and and just working and pursuing other things. So
Yeah.
quit that, but wanted to figure out a way to keep that going. And so personal training seemed like this natural way to do that. Stepped away from track for a lot of years and pursued a business that began mostly with training adults, like I'm sure you're doing, and slowly got to a place where I could accumulate enough athletes to make that a major portion of what I was doing.
So when did you transfer over to your own gym after how many years of personal training at other places?
So I was out there in Virginia for 2 more years after getting certified. Did that. Came here. My wife's family lived here. That was the only connection, and I had family on both coasts. So I said, whatever. Started grad school at ISU, and there wasn't really anywhere to go. Tyler, in 1990, that would have been 1994. Four Seasons was here. They were doing minimal personal training. There was a place called Power and Fitness in Tawanda Plaza. Larry Strongwood had started, and a lot of people will know that name that have been here a long time. I had a place going, obviously the Y, and that was about it. There was no CrossFits. There was no,
Yeah.
so I started going to people's houses. I needed to figure out a way to keep it going while I was in grad school, make some money, hated waiting tables. So built a little business where I was taking dumbbells and a stability ball to people's houses, and that slowly transitioned over about a year and a half time to being able to be partners in a really rough gym out on the north side of Normal called Twin City Health and Fitness. And when I say rough, it was rough. It was where I met Scott Smith and a lot of the power lifter guys in town, and ripped up carpet and ratty machines, but it was a place to train.
Yeah.
And did that for a few years, and then branched out on my own in 1997 with a really small place on Gill Street. I was blessed to have a few different locations and grow that, and it led me to where I am today. So got a lot of great memories of doing that for a lot of years.
Yeah. What kind of struggles or roadblocks did you have at the beginning? Or did you have any in the middle as well?
Yeah, there were struggles the whole way, dude. um, I think that I had and have some talent in the physical transformation, athletic performance world. I think I was a terrible business guy. So I often say to kids, I teach here now too. Go get a minor in business. Don't just do the whole fitness thing, because I made a lot of mistakes. Made a lot of financial mistakes from a structural standpoint of the business, from how we structured billing and payments and things like that, and just how I looked at things, because I didn't understand money real well. I didn't understand business real well. It would have helped to have some of that some better management skills as far as handling staff and things like that. I made a ton of mistakes in that area too, and not too proud to say so. Time and wisdom and those mistakes, if you survive them, helps you a
Yeah.
ton. So the struggles were really just a lack of knowledge in the areas that I think are essential. I see some of the things you're doing. I'm like, man, light years ahead of where I was at that point in time, and understanding how I don't think I also approached it in trying to design a life. I was chasing a job. I was chasing numbers, and you seem to have figured out really well what you want your life to look like, and what kind of freedoms you want to have. And you've designed, at least outwardly, it looks like a business and a schedule that lends more to that than I probably did. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I feel like I'm still learning things like every day on the business side and even on the training side. The training stuff changes all the time in the fitness industry, and new research and everything's coming out. So if someone was trying to get into personal training, how would you say that they need to go to school and get exercise science degree, or would you say, certifications online, find a mentor? How would you kind of navigate that?
I think you just nailed it, dude. I think at one time, like again, it was forever ago, and man, I wish I knew as much now as I thought I knew when I started. Um, it was different then. The certifications were very few and far between. Now there's so many opportunities to get continuing education. My degree gave me a basis for uh, sifting through the multitude of information that comes at you in this industry. I know you've seen, and deciding what probably has validity and what and pursuing and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Uh, but I learned far more in the trenches, far more taking classes than I ever did in school. So to answer your question, I think that the background helps. I think that I would decide what you really want to be good at and what lights you on fire, and I would pursue as many certifications and trainings and mentors down that path.
Yeah, I have a coach for strongman, and he's kind of been my mentor into the side of strongman and like more of online personal training with strength athletes and stuff like that. But then like I've had people that have listened to the podcast and they're like, "Well, why does your brother have a coach? And then why does he have a coach? Can you kind of say why it's important to have like someone that is maybe you think is high on the skill level, why they would want to have a coach?"
Uh, I think you look at every great athlete, every high performer in business. They may not call it a coach, they may call it a consultant. Um, but what kind of hypocrite would we be if we didn't invest in somebody to guide and be another pair of eyes for us when that's what we're selling for a living to some extent, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's massively important. We're too connected as humans to ourselves to have the objectivity that we need to make some of the tough decisions. I think that's a rare person that can do that. When when I was running Fitness Quest, I had a business consultant that I would go down to Louisville 4 times a year and meet with. We'd sit in a room with 10 other guys and this consultant and bounce around what's working, what's not working, uh, what are some new ideas, what are resources that we haven't thought of. That was invaluable to me. So um, certainly, I think everybody needs a business coach, a fitness coach, a whatever it is you're trying to excel at. You need somebody who's been there, walked that path, and can help you separate the emotions from the decisions.
for sure. As your time as a personal trainer or when you were running the gym, what was like one of your most rewarding success stories over the last 25 years? Does one stick out?
You sent me some note. You sent me some notes. Yeah, you sent me notes on that, and Tyler, I've reflected for like 3 days on that, and this is not the answer you were looking for. You want to know what sticks out to me? The incredible relationships that I built. There's a young man that still comes into this day that's 33 years old. And at one point, I'll never forget this. He worked with one of my trainers when he was in fifth grade. He's 33 today, and he and I still work out together. Um, he was kind of a heavier kid. He can't, and he stopped in junior high. So he shows back up. I was in the basement of the Brady building on Eastland Drive. He shows back up. He goes, Todd, great to see you. I'd love to work out with you again. I'm going to be a senior next year. He's big at this point, playing football at Normal West. He says, I think I want to bulk up for my senior season. And there's some luxury and wisdom. I looked at him and I thought to myself, this is either going to work or it's not, but this is the right thing to say to this young man. I said, Nick, I'm not going to do that. I said, I won't be a part of that. But what I will do is make you stronger and faster and lighter, and you'll be a better lineman. But I'll tell you what, if I make you, I said, what do you weigh? He was like, pick a number. He was 280, 285, something like that. I said, let's say we do what you want to do and we end up 300 pounds. You gonna play football in college? He goes, hell no. I go, okay. So then you go to college, and if we don't pick up any new habits, you're 320. You graduate from college, you take a job at State Farm, you're on high blood pressure meds, diabetes, the whole bit. I go, I didn't do anything for you. In fact, I made your life worse. I said, so
Yeah,
how about I make your life better? We get more athletic, you excel, and we change your life. Well, he got through his senior season, and we proceeded to get down almost 100 pounds. Um, he managed that for a while, got married, had a couple kids, put 30, 40 back on, whatever the number may be. But he's still 60 pounds ahead of where we would have been. Um, in fact, actually, he's about 75 pounds ahead of where we would have been right now. He's in great shape. He's got 2 kids. He's got a wonderful life. And he's a friend now. And I started that relationship with him when he was in fifth grade.
that's
That
crazy.
stands out to me. And there's several of those stories of people that at this point, I still have 7 or 8 people I work with that I've had for 30 plus years. And those are the things that stand out.
Yeah. I know when I was at Fitness Quest, you had a couple people that were in like the 70s and 80s, and it's like you've been training them for 30, 40 years, and you've built that. They weren't just a client, they were like your friend, and you were, you know, just showing them the ropes and making sure they could have a nice long life, being strong, being healthy, and just have that camaraderie with you and all the other people that were in there.
Yeah, that's so rewarding for what we do. And I don't think it's not what brings us to it, um, but it's certainly what keeps us doing it.
So I want to kind of go over a couple misunderstandings about building strength and speed because that's kind of your route and kind of get your take on a few things. Strength and speed are completely separate. So many people may like think that you can only be fast or you can only be strong. What's your is there like a correlation between the two? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think you can be strong and not be fast. I think you can sometimes be fast and not be relatively strong. The big thing we talk about a lot is power to weight ratio. That's what a lot of speed comes down to. It's not absolute strength. Just because you bench 500 pounds doesn't mean you're going to be fast.
Correct.
There's some body mass issues that come along with that. When you look at an elite level sprinter, their force production is about 340 pounds of force per step. That is oftentimes an 170-pound guy. So are they strong? Hell yeah, they're strong.
Yeah.
But they're putting that force into the ground in approximately a tenth of a second. You know how long it takes to blink? About a tenth of a second. So that's how fast that force production rate is happening. So are they mutually exclusive? No. Do you have to be one to be the other? Not necessarily, because along with all that, there's a lot of mechanical factors that we have to coach to every day. It's direction of force application, it's efficiency, it's all of those things. So where strength really plays a massive role in speed is in acceleration. Once an athlete hits max velocity, there's a lot of elasticity and technique stuff that is big in impact potentially, as absolute or not absolute, as relative strength would be. I think that's one of the huge misconceptions is that sprinting isn't traumatic. It's massively traumatic.
Yeah.
Think about those numbers that I just put out there. In 100 meters, an average athlete like Bolt was like 41 or 42 steps, I think, for 100 meters. So think of a single leg squat 20 sometimes at over 300 pounds inside of 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's traumatic.
Insane. Yeah.
So, like, if you were to come to one of my practices, you'd be like, man, they stand around him. You're damn right we stand around a lot, because when we go absolute max, and then we got to rest to reproduce them.
Yeah. So what kind of exercises do you do with a sprinter to help carry over to that force production?
It's funny. It's like you said earlier, that paradigm is always changing. You can see everything if you begin to look at what a lot of top coaches are doing. You see these highly technical coaches that are doing all kinds of crazy stuff to target specific joint angles, which is really what it comes down to very, very simple. Like one of the fastest guys, now everybody's going to argue he was on drugs, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the guys at the top level probably at some point were on drugs. But Ben Johnson, they squat, bench, push press, and rode. That was about it. Charlie believed that his coach, that the real money was made by technique work and velocity work on the track. They went in. They would usually do 3 to 5 sets of each of those things.
Okay.
And that was it. Very simple. So, my approach is typically, I'll give you a 30,000 foot overview. We start with a plyometric movement, some type of jump. That jump may be an absorption type jump, or we do a depth drop to a hurdle hop. So absorb, recoil. There's a little bit of stretch shortening in there. Or that would be one day a week. The other day a week, we might do one just like a box jump, where it's pure force production overcoming inertia. Because when they come out of blocks, they got to overcome inertia, right?
Yep.
So from there, we go to a med ball movement that's explosive. Again, somewhere between 2 and 4 sets, depending upon where we are. That might be an over, mimicking like a high pull, so we get triple extension out of the back. But we're using somewhere between an 8 and 12 pound ball, and what we're looking for is as high a velocity as possible. We go to an Olympic lift. Typically, we'll have a strength lift, more traditional strength exercise after that. And then we go to a couple accessories. I like to target the hips. I love the saying, and I think that there's no better, truer saying. Great athletes have great hips and great feet. Sometimes I can't do anything about their feet, but my plyo work, my running work, and we do actually some specific footwork 2 days a week addresses that. And then we do a lot of, in the personal training world, we got away from for a lot of years, like hip flexion, because everybody's hip flexors are tight because they sit too much. Well, that doesn't mean, because they're tight, doesn't mean they were necessarily strong. So, we do other things from a structural standpoint to maintain proper length tension ratios, so that they can achieve the shapes we need them to achieve. But we address strength in the hips and glutes a lot, with a lot of our accessory stuff. Obviously, our Olympic lifts do that. But so a lot of our accessories are based around, you said, what exercises do we do for speed? that I gave you an overview, but a lot of our accessories are based around things like that. So we have a rotary hip. We might do hip flexion lead, Nordic hamstring curls,
Mm.
stuff of that nature. The Nordics obviously serve a dual purpose. That eccentric movement not only serves to strengthen the hamstring, but hopefully we're injury proofing just a little bit too. And there's a little bit of controversy there on that. It depends on who you talk to. I've had good luck with them. We might do a glute ham. I think that this is going to sound crazy, Tyler. I think one of the greatest predictors in the weight room for natural speed, and bear with me here because I will explain myself as a chin up.
Is a chin
And right
up.
now you're going,
Okay.
what the hell? What the hell does that have to do with anything? I started this whole conversation with power to weight. You can't be really strong at a chin up without being relatively lean and relatively strong compared to your body weight. So if I got a guy who's pretty lean, can strap 45 pounds around his waist, and I cranked him to 12 pull-ups, I'm pretty sure he's going to have the physical biometrics that I need, obviously if he understands training, to probably be better than him.
Yeah.
That's a broad stroke, but in general, if you can't do good pull-ups, there's a few things. You're either weak or you're heavy. You're not very lean, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong, even in your world?
No, you are correct. You are very correct.
So that that's sort of it's almost like a prerequisite. I'm not saying that that's going to always equal, but it's certainly something that if you can't, I know there's very little chance you're going to be fast.
I know in my world, a lot of the strongman, even like the heavyweight guys, they're upwards of 400 pounds or so, but they can still do chin ups, pull ups. They can do it with weight, uh, which is crazy to show like how strong they are, but also like that mass is used to move the massive things that they're doing. So that is, I guess that would be a huge predictor of strength, I guess, overall, not just in sprinting or strongman, but probably overall life.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll bet you if we put those guys not on a 100-meter dash, it'd be too far. But if we put them in a 20-meter dash or 10-meter dash, they would probably blow people's mind how fast they can move.
Yeah. I think Mitchell Hooper just kind of he won World's Strongest Man two times. He's won, multiple shows. He just posted a video yesterday of him doing stuff for the NFL Combine. So they had him do the 5-10-5 and broad or vertical jump and the 40 yard dash, and he like smoked it.
Yeah.
So
So to the point, those guys are amazing.
yeah. So how hold on one second. It's glitching. So how important is diet for like a sprinter? Do you have them focus on a certain diet? Do you have them eat certain things before a race, before practice, after practice? How does that look for someone in the track and field sport?
I think that's a loaded question because you know how I am about food. uh, I, I mean, Tyler, I think obviously the metrics are different from strongman to sprinting because I'm not going to say that body composition is not important for you guys, but it's not as important as it is for us.
Yeah.
And like I already mentioned, uh, it's traumatic to sprint. So if we're not putting the fuel back in to recover, then we're not going to get the training effect, no matter how good the program is. You know that, and I'm sure you preach it all the time, even on a fitness enthusiast level.
Yeah.
Um, in the world that I used to be in, I used to say to people, anybody can make you tired. It's hard to make you better. And so making you better requires some well thought out programming and progression. And what it also requires is that the person doing it is paying attention to recovery. Recovery, line one is fuel, food. So we are looking at adequate protein intake. We're just all the same metrics you are. Adequate carbohydrate intake. I'm lucky I work with college kids. So Uh, Margin for error might be slightly higher than it would be for a 40-year-old, but we
Yeah.
still need to make sure that we're getting uh, the building blocks that we need. Um, what I find most often is my female athletes are not paying attention to protein. So when they're not recovering, when things aren't going, I'm gonna oftentimes it's like, hey, let's talk about what a day of food looks like. Well, I have a bagel for breakfast, and then I have a salad for lunch with some vegetables, and maybe about a half a chicken breast. I'm like, okay, stop right there. Let's retool this.
Yeah.
The the guys, it's just cutting them back from doing stupid things. The higher the level gets, the more important um, the details are. So we're lucky here on campus we have a DEXA scanner, so I'll send them up and see where we're at.
Nice.
And I in this day and age and the age group I work with, you got to be really careful about how these conversations are framed. Um, we don't want to cause any harm. The guys are less apt to that, so the conversation always is framed around, hey, look, you look great. I love the way the things you're doing from a performance perspective. Let's take a look at how we might fuel differently to produce a different effect. And if I can get them thinking in those regards, then we avoid a lot of the emotional stuff that sometimes comes along.
Do you do anything with like nutrient like timing? Like is that like on like a race day? Is that like a certain thing that you do? Obviously, probably lower fat because it takes so long to digest, that kind of thing. More carbohydrates, more quick, fast digesting things. Probably I would assume is before a race,
Yeah,
between races, stuff like that.
yeah, it's fun to talk to somebody who gets what we're talking about because you just fed me all the yeah. Um, you're spot on. Again, remember yourself at 18 to 22 years old. Sometimes it's hard to instill some of the importance of those small details. So I'm trying to do that. Here's the main thing. I try to get them to do those things all week long prior to workouts. We practice at 4:15 every day. So look at organize your life around being the best you can possibly be at 4:15 for me. And then post exercise, post workout. So we will have our sprint workout, and then 3 days a week they do go in and lift. I need you to get to the cafeteria as fast as possible. In fact, what I prefer is that you have a shake in your locker, you do that, and then 30 minutes later you go have a real food meal.
Yeah.
At their age and with their level of intensity, that's completely within what we need to do. So then race day, if we're doing it right during the week, Tyler, I'm telling them do what we do every day so that we're not introducing any variables that potentially change our performance.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So yes, nutrient timing and all that is a very big deal. But how close are you to practice? Okay, from a race perspective, let's try to mimic that.
Yeah.
What do we?
Yeah, I try to do the same thing like when I'm leading up or peaking for a competition is I try to if I'm going to be lifting at 9 or 10 on on the competition day, I'll try to work that in on the same day, same time, and then it's a lot of usually you have to weigh in and you have to usually cut a couple pounds, water cut, that kind of thing, and then you're just eating carbs, sodium, potassium, water, you're just getting everything in. And then like for my training, I'll have, bananas and honey or Rice Krispie treats or dextrin or anything like that. And I'll kind of like test myself and see how my body reacts to those things and then how I perform. So like, oh, maybe I had really bad upset stomach when I had that. I'm not going to do that on the game day because that's just going to tank my performance. So I understand kind of like how you want to try and see what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, amen. I mean, so on race day, it's few variables that we can't control as possible.
Yeah.
End of story. Because there's always going to be some things we can't control, but focusing in on the things we can and managing those, you can't go wrong.
So someone that may be like new to training for sprinting or jumping, can you kind of tell the difference between what maximal strength is compared to explosive power? Maybe like through exercise or rep ranges?
Uh, so are you familiar? I'm trying to think of, have you read Triphasic or Triphasic 2, the books?
I've heard of triphasic.
Yeah, they just put out two. Cal Dietz, it's funny, a lot of people in our game are incredibly generous with their time. I sent him an email about shoot, it was 2 or 3 years ago, actually. It was in regards to training some of our swimmers. And I thought maybe I'd get a response, maybe not. The response was, "Hey, you got a second? Call me." So got to spend some time on the phone with him. I've read both books. To your point, it's rate of force production and all out force production. So a lot of his concepts are based on just that. How fast can we produce? So two guys who can bench, pick a number 405. One, it takes 2.3 seconds. One does it in 1.1 second. Which guy's going to be a better shot putter? Obviously, the guy that can produce force faster.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking for, is who has that ability to direct force in the right put it in the right direction and fastest. That's
Do you,
explosiveness. That's power.
yeah. Do you guys test that with like the bar readers or anything like that? Do you guys test stuff like that?
So we've started in the last year using yes, bar speed velocity trackers.
Yeah.
We're using the Virtue. Uh, we did actually, I did that with our baseball players this year for the first time. Is in their testing. We actually used a high pull at a set weight, and then retest to see what kind of progress we were making. Sometimes I'll do it in sprinting. Another way to do it, Tyler, is do a fly 10
Mm,
versus a flat 10. So we're seeing acceleration versus top end,
yeah.
and the difference in those. So sometimes you will see somebody who has a really poor ability to accelerate, but man, their top end is like, dude, it keeps cutting out on me. Might be my connection. So I'll pick right back up. The difference between somebody who accelerates well and somebody who's got a great top end, those might tell me where they're going to excel from a 60 indoors to 100 outdoors versus a 200, 400 guy.
So why do you like the high pull so much for sprinters and athletes? Because I know you used to
Uh,
do that a lot with swimmers and stuff too.
yeah. Well, I like it because it's not technical, number one. So I don't have to teach the catch.
That's fair.
Um, I could spend when I had so at the gym, I would do it a lot because I had a limited amount of time with them. So the amount of time it would take to get them to learn how to catch properly, uh, really, I felt was a bad investment, because what I was after was that triple extension of ankle, knee, hip, that explosive contraction of the posterior chain.
Yeah. I think it's very underused. I've talked to a lot of other coaches. They've started using that and not more like Olympic lifts, like the power clean and hang clean and snatch and stuff. It's just so hard to teach. And when you have 50 kids trying to do shit, it's so hard to teach that, get them to do it correctly, and then you're risking injury and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree, Tyler. The magic is in that initial pull,
Yeah.
uh, not in the catch. And they're not going to compete in powerlifting. I mean, in Olympic lifting anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know like with a busy schedule for, a sprinter, they have practices, they have workouts and stuff like that. How do you avoid overtraining?
Um, so that's where, like somebody like you asked earlier, and I think this is full circle. Why is it so important to have a coach? It's just so important to have a coach. I say all the time to my guys, I have a dual purpose here. Half the time I'm going to kick you in the ass. The other
Yep.
half I'm going to pull you back. Um, so you've had those days where, man, I feel great, and I have a certain thing on the schedule, but I feel great, so I'm going to do more and more and more. And essentially, you're digging this hole that's going to be really hard to get out of. Um, the answer that I'm giving you is it's through program design and periodization and sticking to that. Every year, I've got everything on paper. I know how many meters we ran each day. I know how many meters we ran each week. I know what the rest period is supposed to be. I don't care how you feel at 3 minutes if the rest period is supposed to be 6, because I'm not going to sacrifice the next rep because on that given day, for whatever reason, uh, and it could be a multitude of things, you feel ready to go. No, physiologically, I know at 6 minutes, after 60 all out, that's what we need, and I'm going to get a better result. Now, I also know uh, there's a lot of nuance, to some of this too. But I also know what we did last year. I know what we did last week, and that's how I try to guard against it. The other thing is, you're that, Tyler. You're the safeguard against. You're the coach. I usually am at warmups. I'm watching them. I'm listening to their feet hit the ground. I'm looking at times in the first couple of intervals. I'm watching them when they don't know I'm watching them between
Yeah.
intervals. I know them and the way they respond to training better than they do because they're, again, biased and emotional about it because they're attached to the organism.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit different for someone like if I'm training someone that's a mom who's got kids in sports, who's doing all these other things, a lot of people don't understand like stress on the body is all the same. So like if you underslept, you had less water, you had not enough protein yesterday, like all those things play into how your body is going to react. So it's like when you walk in for like a training session, it's like, hey, how you doing? Like if you're not upfront honest with me, your workout might be shit because you didn't tell me, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. And I try to push you to a workout when we were supposed to, maybe hit a heavy trap bar lift or something, and it doesn't go the way you want, and then you get all upset and mad. It's like, well, did you have all these other factors that you really needed to take care of, and that's maybe why you're not performing.
Amen, brother. Amen, amen, amen. I would, in a perfect world, I'd have an HRV on these kids every day so that I knew roughly where we were. I think at the D1 level, they might be able to get that granular. We don't. Your point is so uh, spot on in regards to stress is stress, and stress inhibits our ability to recover. And stress that our ability to recover affects our performance, whether it's a 40-year-old mom in the gym or a 20-year-old 400 runner. Unfortunately for us, well, actually, fortunately, in the outdoor season, the conference championship happens about 2 days after finals are over. So luckily, I've reduced volume massively that last week because they've
Yep.
got a bunch of school stress on them. So that kind of equals out, and then the stress is gone because finals are over the last couple of days of competition. So,
Yeah.
um, but getting them to understand that that is connected is sometimes hard.
Yeah. It's super hard for me, like now, trying to explain that to someone, like if they're going through like just a rough patch in, like with their partner or something. It's like, it's like more mental, but it's still stress. So it's like you still have to kind of maybe tune it down a little bit, try and focus on maybe we do a little bit more aerobic training and not strength training. We're kind of just resetting everything. So I think that's a
Amen.
huge, huge thing where people don't understand.
I love it. Yeah, you're right.
How do you keep the same exercises in during the off season as you do in season, or do you
No,
rotate those things?
yeah, we rotate those things. Typically, and this is to your world as much as mine. I think one of the first adaptations we have is to the movement itself. Um, so, changing that. It's funny, like you've done it before. You'll add lunges back in. Somebody who's been working out, and after that first set of lunges, oh my God, I'm so out of shape. No, you're just not used to that pattern. 2 weeks from now, you're not even going to notice the lunge, and you're
Yeah.
probably going to be lunging more than you did when we left off with it last time. So I think there's a lot of value in that. Now, obviously, I am planning those things around where we are in the competition cycle. You asked specifically about off season. Initial phases of off season are really to try to, well, first we take a month off. At the end,
Okay.
our season starts in November essentially and doesn't end until May.
Okay.
So that's a long time. So I typically tell them I don't want to hear from you, see you, or know that you're working out in May if they're done the first week of May. So like my national level athletes go till the end of May. I'll give them June off, and then July is really that general prep phase. We begin to put them back together, shore up anything that we noticed from the year before, and then progress from there.
Do you add any type of sled work or anything, or is that
So
not
even
really?
no, we do that. From the time we get going, we don't. I don't have sleds here. I don't have a great surface to push them on, Tyler.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I do have is a couple devices. I've got what's called a run rocket, which is a resisted sprinting device, and then
Hmm.
also have the opportunity to use a 1080, which does assisted sprinting or resisted sprinting. So we can load them up to 45 pounds of resistance, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in sprint, it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, and it gives us one of the machines gives us ground contact time and flight time and all these really cool metrics, as well as meters per second and so on and so forth for however long we want to go. And the one machine will go up to 110 meters. So you resist somebody with 20 pounds for 110 meters. That's like running a fly 250, a flying 250. It's tough. or we can really dial it up and just go 10 meters. So that's our alternative to the sled. But I do
What's your,
that year round.
what's your take on like having like a belt or anything around your waist with sled like behind you? Like, does that like throw off
So that's what,
does that throw off mechanics, or is
well,
that
at a, it can.
okay?
Um, so we kind of mix it up between heavy and short and lighter and long. The heavy short, we're working on usually typically acceleration angle and aggressive arms, driving, obviously that creates a little bit of hopefully a relative strength bump because of the resistance they're having to overcome pushing into the ground. You don't want it to be so heavy to your point that it does change mechanics because that would be detrimental to what we're trying to do from a coordination, from a motor unit synchronization standpoint, uh, from just a form standpoint.
Do you recommend any sport specific drills? Like high knees, quick steps? Do you do anything like stuff like that?
Yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of controversy in that, Tyler, and I'm sure you read all the same stuff I do. Uh, I think here's my take on that. We do them for warm-ups, and I do them a lot with young athletes. And I do it not because there's a direct correlation between doing good at an A skip or a double hop A or an ankling drill. And those are a few that we do. We do dribble drills. With the younger kids, I do high knees. Don't really do butt kicks. I don't do a traditional butt kick, that's for sure, where their legs are sweeping behind them and they're bent over. I don't think uh, that provides any. And here's why I do drills: any context for positions that they need to be good at in the actual movement or skill of sprint. So like everything I do has to do with a shape that I'm going to need them to make when they're sprinting at max velocity or going through acceleration. That's the only reason I drill. So that when we're doing a sprint and I say, lift your toe, dorsiflex your foot as you recover, as that leg swings through and recover, they know what I mean. Otherwise, a lot of they don't have context for what it is we're trying to coach them. I also get to see can they get in those positions because if they can't, so it's funny. We talked about hip flexors earlier. We all know what an A skip is. I'll start with just a standing A position, hand to the face, thigh up parallel, toe dorsiflex, and hold that position for me for 10 seconds. You'd be amazed at how many sixth graders can't hold a thigh at parallel without leaning their shoulders back and getting in a terrible position.
Oh, I bet
And
that's fun to watch.
oh, it's fun to watch. So immediately I'm like, hey, we got homework. You need to be able to hold this for 30 seconds. So tell you what, brush your teeth in this position for 30 seconds. Your hips should be burning. Once we get there, we've begun, and it may not even be a strength thing, Tyler. The brain just may need to figure out how
Yeah.
to access their hip flexor in that tall postural position.
Yeah, I have kids that come in to train with me and their parents, stay for the first couple sessions, just to see like how things
What's going
work.
on?
And they're like, man, my kid does not know how to, do a jump or anything. It's like, well, first off, your kid is very new to this, and he's also learning his body. Like he's never
Yeah,
done this before, and his arms are flailing, legs are flailing. It's like it'll get better. We just got to keep ingraining the motor patterns and all that stuff so that it clicks. So,
yeah. I say all the time, all of that. I mean, jumping definitely, sprinting. I'm biased, but massively is a skill. And at the top level of anything, junior high, high school, college, certainly the high school and college level, there's some aptitude uh, to it, and then there's just a hell of a lot of repetition and training and hopefully good program planning that makes somebody good. It's not just go out there and run as fast as you can. Obviously, there's people that at every sport come to the game with some innate abilities, but at the top levels, it's people who have practiced and learned the skill of whatever it is they're doing.
how do you mentally prepare your athletes for the season? Do you do like certain drills like
You
in
know,
practice or
Um, that has become one of my favorite part of what I do. Like earlier, we were talking about the relationships, bringing it back to personal training. I think that the feet, the meters, the times, the inches, all of that bring us to coaching. But it's the relationships and the massive change you get to have in the way they approach life that keeps you coming back. So, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. COVID screwed up a lot of kids. Um, and I see it every day. Uh, regardless of what we all do or don't think about that period of time, um, the one thing we can all agree on is it had a long-term impact on a lot of young people. It had a long-term impact on a lot of older people. Um, from a psyche standpoint, I'm not talking about health. So rebuilding confidence and teaching them to get comfortable with discomfort and understand that in failure we have growth and that there is no failure, there is only a lesson. And then getting them to step to the line and think that they can win is maybe the biggest thing I can do for their success. And I'm thinking even over the weight room, sprinting, anything, because I don't care how well you're trained. If you step up and think, I can't do this, I'm going to lose, I'm not good enough, or any of those disempowering moments, your chances of succeeding are going to decrease huge. What are the things we do? We talk about visualization. We visualize what happens when it goes wrong. We visualize what happens when it goes right. One of my favorite drills is I have them, we do a whole unit on uh, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. But then
Hmm.
we go through this exercise where I give them a note card. They have to write down I am, I can, I will. What are you? What are you capable of? What will you do when the chips are down? And they don't need to believe it. They just need to come up with something that they can buy into on that card. And then when we step up to the line, everybody does it. They have that voice. And for some
Yeah.
people, the voice, that negative voice is louder. And I tell them the only way to starve out that voice is you talk back to it with I can't, I am, I can, I will. I am, I can, I will. Let's replace the BS in your head, the head trav,
Yeah.
with something positive. So that note card goes on the outside of their locker. Those that struggle with it, that's what they do as they walk to the line to try to replace. My father-in-law. I remember when I first bought my first house and I was struggling with getting the lawn to look good. He goes, "You want to know the best way to have no weeds in your yard? Make sure it's so damn healthy. There's no room for them." Well, so
Hmm.
that's the same thing with their brain. Let's put so much healthy stuff in there that there's no room for that other voice.
Yeah. I have a
That,
shirt. I have a shirt that says "Don't be a can't." And so many people are like, "Wait, what does that say?" They have to do a double take because they think it says another word. But everyone's like, "What does that mean?" It's like, well, I have so many people that come into the gym and they're like, "I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that." It's like, well, first off, we haven't even tried. Uh, so I have a lot of people
so
that do
what
that.
can you do?
Yeah, yeah. But there was a,
I
there's a quote that I always say to some people. It's the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both correct.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
I shared with our team. In fact, I posted some of it not too long ago. Roger Federer has a commencement speech that he did, and he talks about, I think he played in 1,526 singles matches and he won 80% of them. And he proceeds to ask the crowd, what percentage of points do you think I won? And this is a guy who has probably made more money in professional tennis than any other single player. He said 54%. I won 54% of the points I played. Because that means almost half the time I lost. He says, what I learned in losing a point is that the most important point you will ever play in your life is the next point.
Is the next one.
And so if you lose a point, it's over, it's done, you move on. And you focus on what you do have control of. And that is the point that is happening right now. And I tell our kids that story all the time. What can you control right now? What's the most important race? It's the one right now.
That's awesome.
Get distance runners are notorious for getting in. I don't work with them a lot, but we have a few that, hey, we're going to run for Massic, a two flat 800. That means you got to come through a little under 60 seconds, a little over 60 seconds. Well, if they hear the wrong number the first time they come through, you'll see them blow it. And I tell them, hey, I don't care what number you hear. If it's right on, great. If it's not, cool. Watch what I'm going to do next because it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah. So how do you peak for strength? Is it or how do you peak for speed? Is it similar to how you peak for strength? Like kind of drop your volume,
Yep.
Okay.
Keep the intensity up, drop the volume. Don't take away the things that made you strong in the first place. So we don't run slower. We run fast as we possibly can. We just don't do as much volume. We have longer rest periods. It's really the same thing, Tyler, if you think about it. Energy system's the same. Nervous system is king in what you do and what we do. So it's manipulating volume throughout the season up, making sure we have exposure to the right stimuli. And then as we get close, it's sharpening those fine points. For us, there's a few more skill things as well for you too. From a start position, from an acceleration mechanics, and and making sure that we're still hitting max velocity twice a week and, get fresh, get ready, get rested.
Do you have to do anything specifically for like different like abilities? So like does everyone do the same program, like programming like for workouts, or is it can it be more individualized with who you work with?
Yeah, it's no two athletes are going to come to the table with the exact same
Yeah.
uh, needs, abilities, so on and so forth. Now, there's some recipes that tend to work. The vast majority are somewhere in this middle that we can get away with a pretty similar program. But like um, a great example, and I think this is a good place to start to move toward a wrap up is with what you do and with what I do. Coaching is a conversation. It's not me telling them, I get to make the plan, but then there is conversation based around this, based on how they feel about the things that they're experiencing in their body that there's no way that I could know.
Yeah.
Uh, I had an athlete the other day. It was actually yesterday. Hey, coach, I think, as it looks like my skill set is going to lend me towards just a 4x1 in the 100 this season. Do you think we need to make some changes to the training plan? Because I put it out there for them to see it. I want them to know what's coming all year long.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, Joe, that is a fantastic suggestion. You give me 10 minutes and let me review where you're at, what we've done over the past couple of years. And I came back and said, there's really 3 workouts that I need to manipulate. And I've already done it on the training plan for you. It's in green. Take a look at it. Let's discuss today at practice. So because he wasn't going to run any 2s and certainly no 4s, we changed the focus of a
Yeah.
couple of our workouts to tailor to him. I have 2 400 runners, my top 2 400 guys. One's my son. I train him completely different than my number 2 because he's more of a speed guy coming up. I've got an 800 guy coming down. So the 800 guy coming down, we train with a lot more volume 1 day a week than I train Evan. So he might do 4x8, 4x400 with 3 minutes rest at 800 pace 1 day, where Evan will do, uh, you know, 2 to 3x300 at 400 pace. So the
Okay.
velocity is massively different, and the meters, the volume is massively different. But the two respond differently and can handle different things. So really, the gifts they were given are massively different, and I need to play to
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. Do you have any last words that you would like to say?
No, it's funny, Tyler. I knew that we would get to this point. What, I didn't say it earlier, and I should say it now. One of the things you asked me is, and I shared the story about Nick, and it's about relationships. The other cool thing has been watching people like you, that I was lucky enough to be a little tiny part of their path. Hopefully, had a little bit of an impact. I,
You
I think
did.
of you. I think of David Eidelfeld. I think of Jen Blair. Uh, Hawkins is still doing it. Hawkins had a massive impact on me. There's so many people still out there changing lives. I got to be there for a second, and uh, I take no credit in that other than being lucky to be there. I'm probably showing you how not to do it. Um, but but no, seriously, that is a great source of enjoyment, pride, and um, I just always have been proud of that.
Yeah. It was awesome working
And
under
what
you.
you guys have done.
Yeah.
So
Dave's still
thanks for having me
the
on.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Dave is
I-
a wild man.
He is. He is. My
Hey,
goal is to get him on the podcast too and have him talk some experiences that he's had. So
you're gonna have to put a time limit on that.
that yeah.
The thing about Dave, it's funny that I don't know that I've ever met a dude that has been able to get his body to do such a wide variety of extreme things that he has. I mean, from like uh, triathlons, marathons, powerlifting, bodybuilding. I mean, it's incredible.
It is.
So, well, Tyler, hey, all the best to you, and appreciate you having me on.
Yes, you too. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day.
You got it, man. Take care.
Take care.